My name is Charlotte Bennett, and I'm 32 years old. I manage fleet operations for a regional freight company, which is a fancy way of saying I spend my days making sure hundreds of trucks don't disappear across the country because someone decided a shortcut through 3 extra states sounded like a good idea. It's not glamorous. Nobody hears logistics manager at a dinner party and says, "Wow, that's exciting." But it pays well. Nearly $100,000 a year. Enough to build a comfortable life. Enough to build a future. Or at least I thought so. 4 years ago, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, I walked into a coffee shop downtown, carrying my laptop and a stack of paperwork. The place was packed. I spotted one empty seat. A man was sitting at the table, looking frustrated at his computer screen. I smiled. "Is this seat taken?" He looked up. That was the first time I saw Ethan Carter. He smiled back. "No. Go ahead." 5 minutes later, we were talking like we'd known each other forever. He had this energy about him. Everything felt exciting around him. He talked about his dreams. He wanted to become a content creator, a social media personality, a lifestyle influencer. Most people probably would have rolled their eyes. I didn't. I listened. I encouraged him. That was my first mistake. At the beginning, supporting him felt natural. I helped him create his YouTube channel. I taught him basic video editing. I bought him better lighting equipment because he said his apartment's lighting was ruining his aesthetic. I spent weekends taking pictures of him. I edited videos. I listened to ideas for captions. I became his photographer, his editor, his cheerleader, and eventually his fiancé. Year 1 was wonderful. We laughed constantly. He met my family. I met his. I truly believed I had found my person. Year 2 changed everything. The influencer dream stopped being a hobby. It became his entire identity. Every meal became content. Every date became content. Every vacation became content. If we went somewhere beautiful, we couldn't leave until he had taken 50 pictures. He compared himself to real influencers. I have the same kind of energy they do. I could totally do this professionally. My engagement numbers are getting better. I smiled and nodded. I wanted to believe in him. Year 3 was harder. His videos barely received views. His social media following barely grew, but his confidence somehow became even bigger. I ignored the warning signs. I told myself everyone needed a dream. I told myself relationships required compromise. I told myself love meant supporting someone's ambitions. I didn't realize I was supporting my own destruction. By our 4th year together, proposing simply felt like the next logical step. We had been together forever. Our families were close. We had already built a life together. So one night, during dinner at the restaurant where we'd had our first date, I got down on one knee. I asked Ethan to marry me. He cried. He said yes. Then he asked if we could retake the proposal photos because his hair didn't look right in the first set. I should have paid attention to that. Instead, I laughed. The next week, he posted engagement photos every single day. Different angles of the ring, different captions, different poses. He seemed happier about the social media engagement than the actual engagement. I ignored that too. Then came the house. We were both tired of paying rent. I had saved for years, nearly $85,000. Ethan had only a fraction of that. Still, I didn't care. We were getting married. I believed in building a future together. We found a beautiful 3-bedroom ranch house. It needed work, but I loved it. I could already imagine our future there. Family dinners, Christmas decorations, children running through the backyard someday. I was already planning a life. Ethan was already planning something else. The moment our offer was accepted, he became obsessed. He posted constantly, "Future homeowner. Manifestation works. building my dream. He talked about the house like it already belonged to him. 3 weeks before our meeting with the bank, I took a half day off from work. I wanted to organize our paperwork. Boring adult responsibilities. Around noon, Ethan texted me. Having some friends over at your place? We'll be gone by 6. I didn't think anything of it. Around 3 in the afternoon, I decided to head home early. I remember pulling into my parking spot. I remember reaching for my phone. I remember hearing laughter. The window above the parking lot was open. Then I heard Ethan's voice, and my entire world changed. I'm telling you, once that house is in my name, I'm done with her. I froze. The engine was still running. I couldn't breathe. Another voice laughed. You really stayed with her for 4 years, just for this. Ethan laughed too. You have no idea how exhausting it is pretending to care about trucking and logistics. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my fingers hurt. Then he said, the sentence that shattered everything. I just need 6 months after the wedding. Then I'll divorce her. Take the house. And start over. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I simply sat there, listening, realizing that the man I loved had never been planning a future with me at all. I sat in my truck for what felt like an hour. Even though it couldn't have been more than 2 minutes. The engine was still running. My hands had gone completely numb. Inside my apartment, they were laughing, as if the last 4 years of my life had been a joke. A third voice spoke. I recognized it immediately. Mason, Ethan's closest friend. So, what's the timeline, he asked. Ethan answered without hesitation. 6 months after the wedding. More laughter. That's cold. Another friend said, it's strategic. Ethan replied, long enough that nobody thinks I married her for the house? Short enough that I'm still young and can rebuild my brand. My stomach twisted. Brand. I wasn't a person to him. I was part of a marketing strategy. Another voice chimed in. And the house. My dad knows a lawyer. There are ways to make things work in a divorce. Especially if I can show that I contributed more emotionally or that she's never home because of work. I almost laughed. I worked hard because I was paying for our future. Apparently, that future had already been sold. Then came the sentence I would never forget. I'm going to do it publicly. The room exploded with laughter. What do you mean publicly? Mason asked. Ethan sounded excited. Some family dinner. Maybe a party. Both families there. I'll announce the divorce and watch her fall apart. Another burst of laughter. That's evil. No, Ethan corrected. That's content. I felt something inside me go completely still. I'll make a whole series out of it. Starting over. Choosing myself. Single man rebuilding his life after a toxic relationship. That kind of stuff goes viral. I couldn't breathe. You think she'll cry? Someone asked. Ethan laughed. Oh, definitely. Charlotte's emotional. She'll probably beg me to reconsider. More laughter. I almost feel bad. No. You don't. Okay. I don't. I stared through the windshield. 4 years. 4 years of helping him. 4 years of supporting his dreams. 4 years of believing I was building a life with someone who loved me, and all of it had been an investment. Alam kon. I finally turned off the engine. Then I started it again. I drove away. I ended up in a small coffee shop 3 blocks away. I ordered a black coffee. I never drank it. I just sat there. People came and went around me. A couple argued quietly near the window. A student typed furiously on a laptop. A barista called out names. The entire world kept moving. Mine had stopped. I pulled out my phone. I looked at a picture of Ethan. It was from our engagement night. He was smiling at me. I used to think that smile meant happiness. Now I wondered if it had meant victory. I could have called him. I could have gone home and screamed. I could have thrown his things into the street. Instead, I started thinking, because Ethan had made one very important mistake. He had told me his entire plan before he had the house, before we were married, before he had any power, which meant I still had mine. I took a deep breath. Then I texted him. Running late. Probably won't be home until 6. Have fun with your friends. The reply came instantly. Okay. Baba. Love you. I stared at the words, love you. I almost deleted his number right there. Instead, I slipped my phone back into my purse, and I started planning. By the time I left the coffee shop, I knew exactly what I was going to do. The next 2 days moved like a dream. I smiled. I went to work. I answered emails. I acted completely normal. Inside, I felt like someone had died because someone had. The woman who believed Ethan loved her. She was gone. The following morning, I called our real estate agent. I need to withdraw our offer. There was a long pause. Is everything okay? No. I said honestly, but it will be. I signed the cancellation paperwork electronically. We lost some earnest money. I didn't care. It was the cheapest lesson I'd ever learned. Then I called my mother. Mom, can you organize a family dinner on Friday? Of course, she said. What's the occasion? I looked out my office window. Closure. Silence. Charlotte, are you okay? I swallowed. No. She immediately sounded worried. What happened? I'll explain Friday. I just need everyone there. She didn't ask another question. Okay. Then I made one final call. I reserved a private room at an expensive steakhouse in Manhattan. The kind of place people chose when something important was happening. At 6 that evening, Ethan came over. He was sitting on my couch. Scrolling through social media, I watched him. Every smile, every movement, every expression. How had I missed it? How had I loved someone who could talk about destroying me while eating dinner at my table? He looked up and smiled. Long day. Very. He stood and kissed my forehead. I almost stepped away. Instead, I forced myself to smile. I have good news. His face brightened. What? My mother wants to throw us an engagement dinner. Both families. Oh my God. He practically bounced. Really? I nodded. Friday. He grinned. This is perfect. I could practically see the gears turning. Another dinner. Another photo opportunity. More content. He wrapped his arms around me. I love your family. The lie was so smooth, so effortless. I nearly shivered. What should I wear? He asked. I shrugged. Whatever you want. I have that new blue suit. The one from my birthday pictures. That'll work. He smiled. This is going to be amazing. I looked at him for a long moment. Yeah, I said softly. It really is. Over the next 2 days, he talked non-stop about the dinner, what we should post, what pictures we should take, how exciting it was. I nodded and smiled. Inside, I felt nothing. Friday finally arrived. At 6:45, I walked into the restaurant. The private room was beautiful. Soft lighting, white tablecloths, fresh flowers. A place designed for celebrations, or endings. My parents arrived first, then my older sister, Rebecca, and her husband, then my younger brother, Noah. Everyone looked confused. I hadn't explained anything. A few minutes later, Ethan's parents arrived, his mother, Diane, his father, Frank. They greeted me warmly. I almost felt guilty. They had no idea what their son had done. At exactly 7 o'clock, Ethan walked in. Blue suite, perfect hair, bright smile. He looked happy. He kissed my cheek. You look beautiful. I thanked him. Then he took his seat beside me. I looked around the table. Everyone was here. Perfect. The waitress brought drinks, then appetizers, then dinner. People chatted, laughed, completely unaware that a bomb was sitting at the table. I waited until everyone's food arrived. Then I placed my fork down. My hands were steady. My heart wasn't. I stood. The room slowly grew quiet. Ethan smiled at me. I knew exactly what he thought. He thought I was going to announce our wedding date. I looked directly at him. Then at everyone else. I wanted both families here tonight because I have an announcement. Everyone waited. I took one deep breath. Then I said the words, Ethan and I are over. Silence. Absolute silence. His smile disappeared. What? I looked at him calmly. The engagement is over. His face went white. Charlotte, what are you talking about? I reached into my purse, pulled out my phone, and looked directly into his eyes. You wanted a public breakup. I paused, so I decided to give you one. The room went completely silent. Even the waiter standing near the doorway froze. Ethan stared at me. Then he laughed nervously. Okay, that's not funny. I didn't smile. I'm serious. His face changed. Charlotte. What is this? I slowly set my phone on the table. 3 days ago. I came home early. I watched the color drain from his face. I parked outside my apartment and heard voices through the open window. His expression froze. I continued. I heard you tell your friends that once the house was in your name, you were done with me. Nobody moved. I heard you say you planned to divorce me 6 months after the wedding. Diane put a hand over her mouth. Frank slowly lowered his fork. I looked directly at Ethan. I heard you call me dead weight. He swallowed hard. I heard you say you only stayed with me because I could help you buy a house. Charlotte, he whispered. And I heard you say that publicly humiliating me would make great content. The entire table sat in stunned silence. Ethan's face had turned ghostly white. That's not. Don't. I held up a hand. Please don't insult me by lying. He looked around the table desperately. This isn't what it sounds like. No. I let out a small laugh. Then tell me what it sounds like. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I continued. You said I was too busy with work. You said I had no ambition. You said you were going to take the house and rebuild your brand as a divorced homeowner. Every sentence felt like a knife. But saying them out loud also made me realize something. I wasn't broken anymore. I was angry. And anger was easier to carry than heartbreak. Diane slowly turned toward her son. Ethan. He looked at her. Mom? I can explain. Can you? Her voice shook. Because right now, I don't know who you are. Frank finally spoke. Tell me she's wrong. Ethan looked at his father. For the first time since I'd met him. He looked afraid. Dad, tell me she's wrong. Silence. The answer was written all over his face. Frank closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he looked 10 years older. Oh my God. My mother reached across the table and took my hand. I hadn't even realized I was shaking. Ethan suddenly stood. This isn't fair. I almost laughed. Fair. He looked at me. You spied on me. My window was open. You listened to a private conversation? A conversation about committing fraud? He looked around desperately. It wasn't serious. I stared at him. You planned an entire divorce timeline. I was joking. You discussed lawyers. I was venting. You called me dead weight. I didn't mean it. I leaned back in my chair. That's interesting. He blinked. Because every time you say something, the story changes. He looked trapped. Because he was. Diane slowly stood. Tears filled her eyes. You used her. Mom, you used her. No. I looked at him. You did. Silence. Frank suddenly pushed his chair back. The sound echoed through the room. He looked at his son with complete disappointment. She loved you. Ethan looked like he wanted to disappear. She supported everything you did. Dad, she bought your equipment. His voice grew harder. She believed in you. The room remained silent. And this is how you repay her. Ethan couldn't answer. His father shook his head slowly. I didn't raise you to become this. I saw tears forming in Ethan's eyes, but I felt nothing. He looked at me. Charlotte, please. No. Can we talk privately? No. You don't understand. I almost laughed again. Oh. I understand perfectly. I looked him directly in the eyes. You wanted a public breakup. I gestured around the table. Congratulations. His face crumpled. I continued. You wanted both families present. I looked around the room. Everyone's here. Tears began running down his cheeks. You wanted to watch me fall apart. I folded my hands together. Unfortunately for you, I already had 3 days to process this. He looked completely stunned. I stood up. So here's how this ends. I removed my engagement ring. The room became even quieter. I placed the ring carefully on the table in front of him. We're done. He stared at it. Charlotte, the house deal has already been canceled. His head snapped upward. What? I withdrew our offer 2 days ago. The entire color left his face. You can't do that. I already did. You didn't have the right. I laughed. Actually laughed. The first genuine laugh I'd had in days. I didn't have the right. His breathing became uneven. You ruined everything. I looked at him in disbelief. No, Ethan. I picked up my purse. You ruined everything. He suddenly stood. You can't leave me. The desperation in his voice startled everyone. I looked at him calmly. Watch me. He looked around the table. Nobody was coming to his rescue. Not his parents. Not my family. No one. For the first time in his life, there was no audience. No followers. No captions. No filters. Just consequences. Diane began crying softly. Frank looked utterly devastated. My father stood beside me. You heard my daughter. His voice was calm. It's time to leave. Ethan looked completely lost. Then he looked at me one final time. I love you. The words hit me strangely, because once upon a time, they would have destroyed me. Now they sounded empty. I shook my head. No. He looked confused. No. You loved what I could do for you. Tears rolled down his face. I picked up my coat. And that's not the same thing. I turned to leave. Then I stopped. Without looking back, I said quietly, I hope becoming famous was worth it. Then I walked out of the restaurant. I heard movement behind me. He called my name. I didn't stop. I stepped into the cool night air. For the first time in 4 years, I could breathe. A few moments later, my mother came outside. Then my father. Then my sister. Nobody said anything. My mother simply wrapped her arms around me, and I finally cried. Not because I had lost him, but because I had finally accepted that I never truly had him at all. Behind us, the restaurant doors opened. I heard raised voices, then Diane crying, then Frank shouting, then silence again. I never turned around. I didn't need to. That chapter of my life had already ended. Later that night, I went home. I packed every one of Ethan's belongings into 3 large boxes. His clothes, his shoes, his camera equipment, the ridiculous ring light I'd bought him 2 years earlier. I carried everything downstairs, set the boxes neatly beside the building entrance. Then I went back upstairs. I locked my door. I sat alone in my apartment. It was strangely quiet. My phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. Ethan, over and over. I didn't answer. By midnight, there were 23 missed calls. I blocked his number. Then I turned off my phone. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I should have felt devastated. Instead, I felt exhausted. And somewhere underneath the exhaustion, I felt free. I had no idea then that the worst wasn't over. Because Ethan wasn't finished destroying his own life, not even close. Saturday morning. I woke up to my phone vibrating across the nightstand. I turned it on. 41 missed calls. 28 text messages. Most of them were from Ethan. Please talk to me. I made a mistake. I didn't mean any of it. I love you. Please answer. Then the messages became angry. You embarrassed me. You ruined my life. You could have talked to me privately. I stared at the screen. The irony was almost impressive. He had planned to humiliate me publicly. Now he was furious that I'd done it first. I blocked his